Primo Talks. This is Mondays. On Mondays, as I told you guys before, I'm going to talk about business. Take this opportunity. If you're going to start a company in 2023, on every Monday, we're going to talk business. If you want more information or if you want to get in contact with one of the people here at CFS Studios Consultant Department, Cash Flow Stewardship Starting Department, don't forget to call 402 804 3777. Again, that's 402 804 3777. This allows you, if you want to have a question answered, not just hear it and be entertained. But today we're going to talk about starting a business in 2023. A lot of people ask that question. If you didn't start your business already, you may be starting it right now. So today we're going to jump into the show. We're going to talk about starting a company in 2023, what you need to know, especially regarding regulations, licenses. We have a good time. I expect to have this conversation for getting about 20 minutes. That way, if this is on your lunch break, you can head back to work. You can get back to doing the things you need to do if you're a business owner. But I'm excited about that just as we dive into it. So in 2023, you decided you want to start a business. What's a couple of things you need to have? Well, you need to go ahead and get yourself a checklist of things. One, you need to write down how much money am I willing to allocate to the opportunity. That's right. How much money are you going to allocate to the opportunity? And where is the money going to come from? Is the money going to come from your savings? Is it going to come from your checking? Is the money going to come from going to get a small business loan? That means you would have had to establish the company first. Then you will go out and do a business plan. But how are you going to start this investment? Do you already have the money or you don't have the money? What are your options? I mean, there's a couple of options everyone has. You're going to start a business. But most of the businesses that are started to keep debt low, especially in a high inflationary time, is bootstrapping. That's right. That means you start your business and you use the funds you have access to. But here's the thing. Before you decide to bootstrap your business, one of the things in 2023 you got to do is you got to sit down and then begin to ask yourself this question. What am I going to be making a product or am I going to be providing a service? You need to separate that. Maybe you're saying I'm going to do both. I'm going to have products and services. But here's the question. Which one of them is going to be able to sustain you? Sometimes people like to go ahead and start a company because they found this cool product. Maybe you found a pen and you wanted to go ahead and you want to sell pens. You decided that you got a pen presser and you found a person that can actually produce pens. And you decide to leverage the fact of the person. He says, well, if you go out here, you sell these pens, I'll pay you commission. So you build a whole website around the fact that this gentleman has these pens that he's going to be, that you can have access to, and you can go put companies' names on it. If that is still the case, and you're starting this business on 100% commission, leveraging another business that exists, and you go into your website, and then he decides that he could combine that. That may be not it, but I'm just using this as an example. One of the things you need to know then is this. For the amount of time, how much time do you have dedicated to this opportunity as well? That's important in 2023. Some people said, well, I work full time and I'm going to start a part-time business. Cool. I don't see anything wrong with that. Again, nothing wrong with that. But first, you got to ask yourself, how much money am I going to be deploying to this opportunity and how much time I'm going to dedicate to it? Is this going to be a second job for you where you're working 40 hours doing this? The key to it is, how can you work 40 hours at doing this if you're going to be doing this for free? Now, the rule number one, if you start a business, number one thing you're doing is for profits. It has nothing to do with a product or service. It's literally profit driven. Now, most businesses, they start off and they have ambitions. And, it's nothing wrong with having ambitions, guys, but you got to remember, a business is made to generate revenue. It's not made to say that I'll pay myself a year from now, 2 years, or 5 years from now. The goal of it is if you work a regular job and you go and draw into income, you're going to get paid either by the hour or by salary. If you're 100% commissions and you out there working in a furniture store and they don't pay, it's 100% commissions, whatever you're doing, 100%. Don't have to be a furniture store, but whatever you're doing, 100%. Then at that particular point, you're working actually for free until you make a sale. But the overall goal, if you're going to walk that sales floor or sell that product, even if you're doing network marketing, selling Mary Kay, or you're selling Avon, and no respect of which one I put in order first, not ranking them at all, just so you know that for disclaimer, just made the statement. I don't get paid by neither one of them, so I really don't care. But my point of it is to have yourself in a position in 2023, if you're going to start a business, what are some of the key steps? One of the first key steps is knowing how much money you're willing to deploy to this opportunity. Step number two is how much time am I willing to dedicate to this? And based on how much money, based on how much time, how long would it take me to get my initial investments that I put forth if I'm financing myself? How long would it take me to get an actual return where I won't have any capital in this investment? Will it take me 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4, 5? Well, you say, well, I really don't know. Well, first of all, does it even make sense to start the business? So before you do the first thing, which is how much money you're going to be deploying to this resource, the opportunity cost. Again, how much money you're going to put to the opportunity cost. Second is how much time am I going to put into this opportunity? Let's go with the zero thing. Is there even a clientele base for this? You know, a lot of businesses get started all the time. And when these businesses get started, it gets started because the person is excited and they feel they are vigorated. It's exciting to start a business. You're going to be your own CEO. No one can tell you can't do it. You got the funds available. But before you spend the funds, the question is there enough money so that I can get my money out of this thing? What if I started this business and I can't get my money out? Then what good was starting it? You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you start a business and at the end of the day, you can't get out of it. Am I creating something that I can even sell? Well, if you start off and you self-employed, then you can't sell it. You can only retire from it. Now, if it's a service, you can't sell it because you do that. You can transfer the service to somebody else, but if you sell a service, you can't sell that service to someone else to buy. You can sell your clientele list. Keep that in mind. So if you're starting a business in 2023, then that means you got to build a data of a sales list of individuals you do work with, because then you can sell them as clients. Well, on the other side of the equation, what if it's a product? Well, then you could just sell the product. But the question is there enough people that's involved that is interested in what you're about to sell? And if the answer is no, if your immediate research from talking to friends, family, and other associates on the sales pitch is that nobody, and I mean nobody, is interested in acquiring either your service or your product, it's nothing that you should do. I understand that you may have ambitions, you want to change the world, but I mean, I continue to tell you that they're coming out all the time. I mean, the round circle has worked for years. I know they're coming out with other technology when it comes to a tire, and I've seen that tire, I've seen that technology. They're coming out where instead of it being the traditional tire you see, they got kind of like a fan slits in it, so it still has a round part to it, but it's almost like they have little breathable tires in between. Again, that's technology, but what does most of us buy? We buy the round tire. Then nobody's buying square tires at this point. Nobody's buying conveyor belt tires at this point where they're wrapping around like you're driving a tank or something. But in 2023, if you want to start a business, you got to ask the number zero first. Before you go to one and two, zero is I need to make sure that there's enough individuals that if I do this business, that I can actually get my money back. Two, if I do deploy my resources into this business, how much am I going to use? Three, the other factor in 2023 you want to make sure is if you're going to put your time in, how much time? Those three things are critical. Are you going to focus on products? Products are inputs, which means it's not finished goods. The cost of starting a business is going to be more if you're doing product-driven businesses. I just want you to understand that because you're going to have inventory, you're going to have to put more money up front. Service-driven businesses are a low barrier to entry. You can get in those businesses pretty quickly because you're providing a service that you have the skills to perform. Again, so you have a low barrier to entry, and it's a little bit more cheaper to start a business in 2023 if you're going into the service business. If you're going to go into an input business or products, it's going to be more expensive. You need to know that before you even start. Here's one of the other things you want to think about is identify what the business area is that you want to go into. So it's not product or service, identify it. That industry that you're going into, is it actually starting to slow down? I mean, at one point, as you know, computer programmers everybody was going to school for computer programming. Well, in 2023, everybody's going to school now for what? Cybersecurity. Now, there's still people still going for computer programming, but most of the time they're looking for someone who has more skills than just programming. They want to make sure that they also can do cybersecurity. They want to make sure they have management background. So they're asking now, we used to go in and say cybersecurity. They're looking for a person who's a little bit more well-rounded, who can offer multiple things plus cybersecurity. Now, that's important to know because in 2023, they have emerging technologies. And with these emerging technologies, they need you to also be flexible and optimistic at the same time. Okay, now that you got your idea, you decide that you want to go into a business that has a product. Now, if you're going to have to deal with a business have a product, you have to understand that that cost is going to be higher than if you're going to offer a service. Service is something that you can pretty much do yourself. I mean, case in point, let's say I was starting a business and I was going to start a receptionist business. And the only thing I had was my cell phone. I have my cell phone. I'm going to start a receptionist business. Now, I'm not, again, anything I'm giving you guys right now, make sure you do your research. I'm not telling you to go out here and start a secretary business or administrative assistant business with a cell phone. But let's say that's all I had. And I got a cell phone. My cell phone bill, let's assume it's $100 a month. So that's $1,200 that I'm going to have to pay off the top. $1,200 a year. That's an annual fee because my cell phone bill is that. But I still don't make any money yet. Well, if you went to work at a job based on the decisions you already made in your personal life for finances, let's assume that my personal finances come out to be that I have to pay $1,500 a month. Okay, well, that automatically tells me that my cost is $1,600. $100 for the phone, $1,500 is here. That covers my pay. And I'm going to do all of this from sitting in my home. And I have a single family. Let's say I have a apartment complex. I live in an apartment. I have a 2-bedroom. I'm going to use my main bedroom for where I sleep at. My second bedroom I'm going to use for the business. So I'm going to do everything from a phone, and I'm going to be a person's secretary. Now I need to go pitch them the service of $1,600 a month, and to tell them, now they may be looking to hire someone and pay someone $2,000 a month to be a secretary in house. And you may say, "Well, I don't work from home." Well, that's not a good fit. Now, you may be able to be a personal secretary to maybe 10 or 20 businesses, but you now know that it's going to cost you $1,600 so you can meet your obligations. That's not including any other material. I mean, what if you don't have a computer? So, immediately when you go into services, yes, it's a lower barrier. So, you have to already have your laptop or a tablet. You already got to have a cell phone. These are all the things that if you do it wrong, these are cost factors and debt that you're taking on, especially when it comes to a business. Then you have to figure out, before I can do it a service business, unless you're going to do 1099 and they're going to subcontract as an individual to raise that revenue yourself. Then once you raise that revenue, you're going to go start the business. I met many people who said they weren't going to do that. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that. I should always, I just wouldn't. Just so you know, I always say, continue to work, continue to draft the material, continue to redefine what it is that you want to do. And when I say redefining it, sometimes you have to adjust. When you're going to start a business in 2023, you just can't say, "I want to start this business." You need to also say, "I need to," and when I say redefine is, you first define it, then redefine it, then define it again, then redefine it, then define it again and redefine it. Another person would tell you, you need to refine your process. I'm going to just tell you this. The term redefine means that once you say you're going to go broad, then you're going to redefine it down so that your service is very clear. You may offer 2 services. You may offer just 2. You may even combine the fact that you're a personal secretary, and you may combine Uber Eats. When you're self-employed, you can do a lot of creative stuff. I'm not telling you nobody to do that, but just giving you an example. We know the nominal cost is $1,600. So let's go into this factor here. We now understand that we got a business. That business, I'm going to be a secretary. I know my cost is $1,600. It doesn't cover nothing else. I can't get a new computer if I wanted one, and right now, we'll say I got a Dell computer and it's moving slow. Well, you got to be able to type letters, send emails for the client. He's paying you $1,600, or she's paying you $1,600 a month, and you don't have any legal structure. So what you need to do is write a wish list down, and this wish list, or a wish list of professionals you need to deal with. You may say, I need to get me an accountant or a bookkeeper. I need to get me a lawyer. Now, you may say that you don't need to. Well, if you're in this state and you decide that you want to start a company, you're going to need a lawyer. Do not start a company unless you have a lawyer if you're in this state. And you say, what state is that? Nebraska. Any legal entity that you file in the state, you got to have a lawyer on the hook to represent your company at all times. Trust me, you need to definitely have that. Maybe you're in a different state and you say, well, I don't want to have a lawyer. It is always good to have a lawyer on your team. It is that's part of the cost of doing business. I know a lot of times people you don't want to deal with the legality situation as if you were a criminal. What do I mean by that? As a general term, when a person is find themselves in legal trouble as an individual, then they normally look and they ask, or they know someone says, "Hey, I'm in this situation. I need to, get a lawyer." So all of a sudden you respond as a criminal would respond. You're now looking, you didn't have a relationship with a lawyer that you develop over the years. I tell a lot of people that if you're going to have business, you need to develop a relationship, long-term relationship with a lawyer. If you have a long-term relationship with a lawyer, it may be smooth, it may not be smooth, but the fact is you need to have one, because you're going to need someone who's going to understand about the legal ramifications that you may find yourself in if for the products and service that you're doing. You want somebody to look at a contract so they can actually make sure your contract has all the addendums they need to have in it and is accurate. Now, if once you've already defined what your business is going to be, once you define already how much capital you're going to deploy, and you've decided if you're going to go into a product industry or you're going to go into a service industry, one of the other factors you need to make sure you know about is this: how long will it take me to get my money back? We addressed those questions. We now already put down the fact that we We know we need to have a lawyer on our team. We know we need to have a bookkeeper or an accountant on the team if you don't have those skills yourself. I know everybody's looking to cut costs, but don't cut costs at the startup when you lack certain skills that you need to have. I mean, worst case scenario, go ahead and hire yourself an accountant or a lawyer, maybe the first 24 months, the 1 year and the second year. Find out what it is that they're doing for you, and then ask the questions that if you begin to pick up and do some of the things yourself, maybe you do your own bookkeeping, but when it comes time to file your taxes quarterly or annually, you have someone do that to make sure it's done right. You want to put that buffer in between you and the IRS to make sure your stuff is done correctly. Now that we move past this, let's deal with some significant concerns of entrepreneurs that they're going to have. And most of the people who want to start a business and they're dealing with inputs, they're always looking at funding options. Now, you need to check with your state, make sure you file all the proper documentation with your state if you're going to do anything as far as solicit for any funds from friends or family. Make sure you go to your state. That's one of the things you want to make sure you get a lawyer for, because if you get a lawyer, he can tell you what it is that you need to do in order to be in compliance, because you don't want to not be in compliance with the state. Trust me, you don't want to not be in compliance with the state. Now, the other thing you want to think about is your financial management and your critical aspects. Now, a lot of people will say, well, you've heard the program before, Jack Bridges. You heard of the other program, Sigma 6. Well, these are all programs that were developed to assist someone when it comes to looking at KPIs, key performance indicators. Now, if you're not familiar with those terms, then you may want to do your little research on that regards. But you need to know about your financial management and the critical aspects of starting a company. Now, in the body of this video, I put some of the things that I'm talking about that you could actually go and look in. And if you have any questions, you can always contact someone at Capital Stewardship, and we can answer any question that you may have. You can talk to one of our other colleagues and peers by looking at the number down in the description in the body, and you can make an appointment to have that conversation, because we're a corporate consultant. So we help companies all the time in areas where we have our expertise. And when we don't have our expertise, we'll tell them, you need to find someone that has that expertise. That's beyond the scope of what we're able to do at this particular time in our careers, because it doesn't make any sense for us to put you in a situation where you're learning and we're learning, and at the end of the day, everybody's learning. That's not what you need. You're looking for somebody who can propel you to your next level. You're not looking for anybody who cannot assist you to get you where you need to be. You're looking for somebody to say, hey, shorten my steps so I can actually start my business in 2023 and I can make that $1,500 a month. Now, here's the thing. Once you look at your financial management, once you look at your budget and your cash flow issues, now, most people don't realize it, but if you run business long enough, you're going to have cash flow issues. You got to make sure that whenever you're setting up your service, now remember, if you already have a business and you make $1,500 a month on your current job, and you're going to stop working on that job, and then you're going to have a cell phone that you're going to be a secretary for that you're operating, keep this in mind. If you're going to go through this process, that means that's $1,600 a month. With that $1,600 a month, how are you going to invoice your client? If your rent is due on the 5th and your client's not paying to the 10th, you're paying late fees every month. So you got to make sure that when you do your cash flow management, when you're starting a business in 2023, or maybe you already started it, make sure your payment dates run on your cash flow. I see so many young entrepreneurs are starting a business, and the way they deal with their customers is this: whatever day they meet their customers is when they get their payments. I get that. But if you're dealing with companies that's established or companies that have been in business over 5 years, they run on a fixed budget, which means that they keep their costs fixed. So either on the 1st or the 15th, they have certain bills coming out. You come along, you say you want to do this, and at the same time, you decided you're going to start this business, and you're going to want your client because you meet them on the 24th, sorry. And at the 24th, they say, well, you know what? I want to go ahead and start my payments. Well, your first payment's due today. An established business is going to say, well, let's go ahead and start on the 1st. You don't know that, though, because you're trying to get as much money as you can because your rent was due on the 5th. You started this business. You didn't have enough money that you allocated. So one of the things is, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to understand that if you bootstrapping your own business, that means you bootstrapping your own finances. That's correct. You bootstrapping your own finances. So if you don't have the money set aside, then you need to have this as a part-time business where you can work up to the point where you can actually walk off the job. Because until you can have that money set aside to cover your expenses, you really can't be 100% in this business. Now, I get it. Everybody has ambition. I'm not a pessimistic person. I'm very optimistic. Despite what I'm going through, I always am very optimistic. I will be optimistic to the day I die, because pessimistic means that you're going to shut off my ability to be creative and my ability to go beyond what my skills are. So here's the thing. You got to have will. If you're going to start a business, your will is going to be important, because if you don't have the will to do something, then you don't have the ability to do it. Trust me, you're going to fail. 9 out of 10 business fail because the will is not there. The excitement was there to start it. And excitement is like gas in a lawnmower. Lawnmowers are not made to go all the way to Colorado, especially a push lawnmower from Omaha. You're talking about driving well over 1,000 miles from between here to Colorado, and you're going to use a push lawnmower. That's excitement. That's not enough excitement to get you where you need to be. So when it comes to you looking at starting a business in 2023, or maybe you already started one and you just watching the show for the first time with y'all financial, it's Primo Talks on Monday show. When I'm talking about money, one of the things I'm going to always push to make sure you're aware of is your blind spots. See, in business, excitement is your blind spots. If you get excited and you're saying you're starting a business, let me just tell you, do a little thing that you give yourself a little time out. As soon as you say something about business and you get excited, say, well, I need to stop for a second, because I'm so excited. I'm using the lawnmower to drive to push this sucker to Colorado, and I don't have enough gas. And you're going to run out of gas because your ability to stay that course is not there. Remember, the first thing I do, zero, is there enough people that can meet my personal obligations? The only reason you start a business is for money. It's not status, guys. So many people start businesses right now, and in the process of them starting a business, they actually do it for perception. So the first thing they do is they put in the capital. Let me use the example. If your rent is $1,500 and you're saying, okay, I have $3,000 in savings, that's not enough to start a business, guys. I'm going to stop you before you start. You may not like what I'm going to tell you. It's enough to start your beta process, which means don't spend a dime. Don't spend $3,000. Don't spend one dime of that $2,000. I'm sorry, not three, but the $2,000. Don't spend a dime. Start asking people first, are my services something they would want to do? Ask the question. Is this a service that you'd be willing to pay for? And I gave the example earlier. If I was going to be a secretary and all I had was a cell phone, is this a service somebody's willing to pay for? A mobile secretary. I will answer the calls. You can put an extension on your main line there, and when it hit zero, it gets me. I'll address the calls, and then if there's a code, especially with voice over data or VPN services, you can do all these creative things. But in the process of doing that, the question that I'm asking you is, are you in a position to make sure that, one, this business is something that you can do and it can financially support your overall goals? If not, you have to stay at your job. Now, here's the other aspect of it. And this is how you must look at the business as an investment. A lot of people are in business today, but they don't see it as an investment. I want you to know it's hubris at best to actually start a company and then say to yourself, I'm in business and I'm not going to pay myself for 5 years. You're not in business. Go get a job and then defer the money for your retirement for 5 years, because at least you get a tax incentive for your 401k. But you cannot start a business and defer anything. The idea that you can do business and you don't have to take a paycheck is hubris. You're going to take a paycheck. It's going to come in the form of a draw. Swipe your business card to buy some personal groceries or put personal gas in there when you're not going to see a client. These are all the things you will do. Trust me. There's no reason to say you're not. And you don't have to trust me. Just start business and you see that for yourself. Because the stuff that you're doing in your personal vehicle, you still got to give an oil change. You still got to do a tune-up. You should be on a normal schedule. If you're using your vehicle, you can charge mileage to the client for the things that you're doing. You could charge them for any paper that you're printing. You could charge them for every minute of a fax you sent. All these things are what they call billable items on a service contract. But at the same time, you don't know that. So you're just driving your personal car, go back and forth, and the client is not paying in a timely fashion. And the reason is because of that is because business is not the product or service. It's actually so when you think about business, products and services are just leverage. That's all they are. They're leverage. The business is the contract. If you're not good at writing contracts, you don't actually have a business. You got a high-powered hobby that's going to make you go broke. And that's one of the things we should always remember. We should never start a business for a high-powered hobby. We should only start a business for one reason and one reason only. Cash. That's right. Money. That's the only reason you start a business, for growing your net profits. If you can't make money, then you need to understand it's a contract issue. I don't care what your product or service is. You must master contract writing, because that is what's going to generate you the revenue. Now, I talked briefly about what is your financial management for your critical aspects of the business. I talked briefly about accounting and bookkeeping. I talked about funding your investment, how you want to go about funding it. Now I'm talking about financial forecasting. Now, there's a difference between financial forecasting and actually running on an operational plan. A lot of people know about a business plan. A lot of people know about an operational plan for bylaws, as far as the laws inside your business. But I'm not talking about a bylaw issue of operations. I'm strictly talking about your day-to-day operation plan. It's not normally that people even have that conversation because you have a business plan, which is a synopsis of what you potentially can do. Then you have an operational plan, what you got to do. Totally different than the potential. A lot of times people will give your business plan. Your business plan is equal to your basically your business resume. Now, as you know, when it comes to resume, there's a lot of things in that are made up. Now, you may say that no, everything in my business plan is correct. Well, it's a showcase of past skills, past success, and a few things that you add into there that you say you do that you know you're not consistently doing. Now you may can do it, but you're not consistent with it. And that's the thing that people do with these business plans too. They go out and they draft these business plans for a new business, and the new business itself doesn't have tenure. It doesn't have time. You haven't developed the character nor the will to be successful in that item. Well, because you haven't done those things, you're going to put yourself in harm's way. And you say, well, what is harm's way? Harm's way is not being very good at contract writing. That is harm's way. Remember, the only reason you start a business is to generate revenue. So every day you have to focus on contract writing. You need to be trying to write contracts in your sleep. Risk management, identify and mitigate potential financial risk. Well, that's easy. For a lot of people, they say it's not. I probably shouldn't say that to individuals who just starting a business. But the easy thing is the first financial risk is always us, you and I, who are starting a business. We are the financial risk. Because if we spend money in a way that we can't get a return, if we spend time in a way that we can't make money, if we do anything that goes against, remember, companies don't fail and companies don't succeed without one word, will. Either you will the company be successful or you will the company to fail. You don't have no plan A or plan B. Your will is going to be successful. The company will be successful, or my will is it will not be successful. That's it. Anything else somebody tells you is really trying to be careful not to hurt your feelings. Every company fails, they failed because of the will of the person failed. They didn't have the drive because you got to remain optimistic. What ends up happening over time when you're running a business or starting a business, you have products and services. You spend too much money up front and you didn't do the due diligence in the data search. What is the data search? The data search is the market research for the services that you're doing. You have to constantly, every day, you have to be doing data searches. You have to be talking to people. You have to be asking people a question. You got to call up a friend. And, boldly, I tell people this. If you don't have any clients, call all your friends and ask for a referral. So let me give you an example. I have a person that I know who teaches singing lessons, okay? And if you want to get her information, definitely make sure you send a message or you reach out to our office at 402-804-3777. Again, that's 402-804-3777. Let's say you're a singer. In the process of you singing, Vertical Connection actually have a person who is a background. Not only did she spend years teaching singing, not only did they spend years singing on stage, they perform at least twice a month. I've seen them perform. Voice coaching. I said voice, voice coaching. They can teach you. They can help you write a song and also get that song published. That's their background. Let's say that's what you want to do. That's your desire. Now, that's a service. Your voice is a service, okay? But here's your background, though. You don't know how to write a contract. And because you don't know how to write a contract, no matter how good your voice is, how many singers have gone broke because they got burnt on a contract? You hear it all the time. You can go back to the 80s and the 90s, and people say they were taken advantage of because singing is a service. Doing an album is a service. It's truly a service, but you're going to get beat on the contract. So you have to understand that if you're going to be in business, and regardless if you're going to be a secretary with a cell phone or you're going to be a singer, the contract is your money maker. Now, I share that with you because maybe you are a singer today. Maybe you say, well, I wrote a couple songs or I've already written songs and I got stuff on iTunes. Yeah, I'm glad that you do. That's positive. Now you're in business. You got a product. Now I'm going to tell you that product You have one product, that's one song. You have two products, that's two songs. But what happens if nobody's buying the iTunes, if nobody's buying anything? Then you have to understand as well that there's another aspect of business. And that's the reason that I pointed it out. And that is your risk management, because risk management also keeps you in check. The other thing is seeking professional advice. Here at Cashflow Stewardship, one of the things is that we have clients that we consult with. When we consult with those clients, we go through a list. This is a small list that I put together for today's live show with Primo Talks live about business. And I did that on one reason. That is to allow you to at least have a little bit of information. You can do your research. Now, at the same time, I do thank everybody who tuned in, who even if you checked in for 30 seconds or a minute, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow our channel, because on every Monday, you're going to have these business Primo Talks with me. And then on Wednesday, I kind of go over a little differently. On Wednesday, I also have a live stream where I talk about my personal stocks. I don't, again, anything I'm talking about, do your research on. And I don't advise you buy any of the stocks that I buy, but that's on Wednesdays. I talk about my personal portfolio. And if I do or I don't, these are the stocks I'm looking at. One of the other things I want to talk about today before I end the show, and then we come back next Monday and I start posting so you guys will realize this, I'm going to get ahead. And that's going to be this. Not just seeking financial advice, is building a team. Now, the team could be internal or external. That team doesn't necessarily have to be, and I'm going to say this because people have asked this question, how do you feel about, going out and having partners? Well, let me just give you the answer, how I feel about it. In my lifetime, I've always had partners in business at one time or another. Very few businesses I do by myself, but in the position that the ones that I do by myself, when I did in the past, it did pursue to go get partnership. And that's because I wanted to build a company that would go on beyond just my set of skills and me being here on the earth. I wanted to create a legacy business where that the business would not just serve the community, but not just serve the state, but it would serve the world. That was my reason. Now, for other people who are doing business, you may not have that desire, but I would tell you this. You need to make sure that you have whoever, if you decide to go out, you need to make sure that you sit down with a lawyer and you get the terms written out for whoever you're going to go into partnership with. I'm going to tell you that. Seek a lawyer, sit down for the terms, make sure the terms are understandable between everybody involved. And that's because if you have any problem that arises, you want to make sure you can check off the boxes so they can't say, well, I didn't know, or use the famous term that I've heard over my lifetime. Well, oh, I didn't know what's going on. That's what people will tell you. And that's a cop-out statement, but people will use that so they can actually try to minimize their responsibility so they can have an excuse for their reason to say that statement, when in reality, there's no excuse, to be quite honest with you, because if you're going to be a partner, you need to know everything, and you have to ask the tough questions, and you have to deal with it. And you may not like all the answers you get, but you get to make those improvements going forward. And if you ever want to be in a position where you're growing a nice sized company, you're going to have to be able to build out, whether with employees, if you're the only owner, you got employees, or you're going to have business partners, you got to be able to do that. If you can't do it no other way, then I do apologize. I can't help you most of the times that whenever we're doing consulting. I mean, if you're an individual, we can consult with you as an individual, but at the end of the day, the question is going to be the same. How are you going to get out of the investment? It's not about starting this business. People love to start stuff. I mean, it's exuberating, it's exciting, but you got to address the issue of this. How do I get out of this company if I start it? If you start this company today in 2023, and 8 months later, you realize that you're not going to be successful because, one, you don't have the will to be successful, because you started this business on lawnmower excitement. And when you start anything on a lawnmower excitement, there's not enough gas in that tank to get you to Colorado from starting from Omaha, walking, and pushing that lawnmower. So you got to have something beyond just that. And that means an exit strategy. If you don't have an exit strategy, do not start the business. You have to know that, how do people lose money? Because they exit the business without getting paid. That's how you lose money. On next Monday, I'm going to go into the conversation of 2023, some of the best businesses to start if you are going to start it, and where's the need. Again, on Monday of next week, tune in. We're going to talk about what are some of the best business to start in 2023, and how can I make sure that if I'm going to start a business, do I have those skills to be in that area? Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, check out the body. If you're looking for any type of consulting work, or you're looking to get some questions and answers, don't hesitate to give us a call here at Cashflow Stewardship at 402-804-3777. and we'll be able to communicate with you and tell you and help you get your questions answered. Until next time, you guys have a powerful day, and I'll see you next Monday. Be blessed.